Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Matt Mettler podcast broadcast. I'm your host, Matt Mettler. This will officially make episode 21. Well, maybe even 22 if you count the Canna episode. I didn't give that one a number. It was just kind of a standalone episode. So yeah, I guess technically we'd be on video 22 now. I would like to welcome everybody to episode 21. It is my great pleasure to be here with you. I worked a show last night, and man, it couldn't have gone more stellar. It went really, really, really great. I was completely feeling the love from the band and the audience. I got wonderful compliments from the band about how wonderful and easy it was. And then I got amazing and great compliments from like 5 or 6 different people from the crowd came up to tell me that it sounded amazing. And came up one guy, I was really flattered when this guy walked up because he said, he was like, wow, are they using a different sound system or something? He goes, it sounds amazing tonight. It sounds different tonight. And he's like, this is the best I've ever heard it sound. And I was like, well, this is the first time I've ever mixed this show. I said, but thank you so much. And I said, I said, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me that you tell me that. But I thought it was just, it was very heartwarming to get so many positive compliments about my ability to mix music and how good I made the band sound. And then to also get the feedback from the band about what a wonderful engineer I was to work with. Man, I feel like Rocky. I feel like Rocky right now, man. I feel like I just ran to the top of the stairs in Philadelphia, man, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm on top of the world right now, dude. It's the shit. I feel amazing. So that was great. Oh, and the best part, it was for like 1,000 people. There was probably maybe anywhere between 600 and 1,000 people. It's really hard to guess based on the space, right? But it was packed. It was packed. So there was a lot of folks, and I got to bump the PA pretty friggin' hard last night. It was kind of funny because the talent show that I'm working there, they have very conservative volume levels that they want me to observe, right? But this outdoor show that I did last night, not so much, man. Not so much. I was able to mix it at show concert volume, right? It was probably right at 102. That's what you expect when you go to like a full-on concert, right? Is that kind of volume level. And it sounded amazing. Even I have to admit that it sounded pretty amazing. The best part about this digital board that I'm working with is I don't have to invent the wheel every single time I do a gig. I can pull up a basic kind of like standard bunch of settings and then go from there. And then another really beautiful facet of the digital desk that I'm really loving is the ability to save all that information and to save all those presets. So for instance, when I finished with that band last night, I was able to save all of the settings on the desk. So the next time that I mix that band, I'll just be able to, pull that up and start right from there. And that I got to admit, as a guy who kind of loves analog, I kind of like that feature of the digital desk. It's pretty sweet, right? So the show was a huge success. I feel amazing. I really do. Because between doing the podcast with you guys and doing the shows that I've been doing, it has just been like healing to my spirit, to my soul, Sometimes we doubt ourselves, right? Like I knew that I had the skills. I knew that I didn't need to be sitting in a cubicle. I knew that I could be out doing something different, and I just needed to prove it again, right? I almost felt like maybe I'd forgotten how to ride that bike, but getting back out there and getting on the bike makes me recognize, no, not only do I know how to ride a bike, I'm pretty fucking good at riding the bike. So that was great. That was an incredible experience, man. And I have another show tonight that I got to go to. I'm recording this before I go to my next show this evening. And I'm pretty sure I did do like 6 gigs between Saturday and now. Let's see. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Because I did Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 5. Yeah. Okay, 5. Okay, it was 5. But, and it's crazy because the days have been kind of long and stuff like that. That's refreshment. So, I was watching a really great video from TimCast this morning. And I like TimCast. I do. He leans left. He says that he leans left, but he talks a lot of sense. The shit that he says makes a lot of sense to me. He doesn't come at things from a nonsensical angle. His arguments make logical sense, and he's the kind of dude that even though me and him don't agree exactly politically, at least we could have a conversation about it, and it would never have to come to fisticuffs. Because both of us are intelligent enough to realize that, hey, maybe we're not going to agree on everything. Maybe at the end of the conversation we won't agree on everything, but maybe we'll come to an understanding. Maybe we'll make some ground, right? I really like TimCast from the standpoint of, I think that he sort of exemplifies what a center-left person actually looks like. Because to be honest, I was thinking about this. I'm kind of like center-right. You know, I'm not far off onto one side of the right at all. Because I don't believe in white nationalism per se. I don't think that there should be shaming for having pride in your culture, because everybody else is allowed to have pride in their culture. So I don't think that there should be shaming for that. I don't subscribe to white nationalism at all. I don't. And, you know, when I was younger, I probably did. I was raised up around, my stepfather was kind of a racist prick, right? And his father was kind of a racist prick. And occasionally they would say racist prick type statements. And when they would do that, it just made me realize how ugly it is to be a wholesale racist. To just deny entire groups of people based on their race, pretty fucked up. It's pretty fucked up. You know, this is the beauty about your examples, right? Sometimes your parents, your role models, are good examples, and sometimes they're bad. Right? Both are valuable. Both are important, right? And in this case, watching them say racist shit made me realize that it's like, wow, to just wholesale write off a group of people like that's completely fucked up. So I don't ascribe to racism in that particular respect. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't like people. There's a lot of people I don't like, and they come in all kind of variety of colors, man. It doesn't have anything to do with what color they come in. It has to do with, can they be reasoned with? Are they intelligent? You know, things like that. Those are the things that I put value on. The content of their character, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to look at? The content of an individual's character, right? We're supposed to judge them on that. And so I at least try to give everybody a chance to prove themselves a dummy or a smart person. You know, I'll give you an opportunity. But once you demonstrate to me, well, then I might put you in a category of dumbasses, you know, if you are one, right? But it was a good example in my life that racism is ugly, man. And if you're black and you hate white people because they're white, that's racism. It doesn't matter what group you belong to. If you hate some other group simply because that other group is that other group and their skin color is different than yours, well, then that's racism, dude. So I have a really hard time with this whole argument that like black people can't be racist. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. Black people can be racist. I've heard black people be racist. So they just have a different perspective on it, right? But racism is racism, and it's ugly. It's ugly, man. So he made this really great video about a movie that Hollywood's trying to put out about hunting people on the right, about hunting the deplorables, right? And it was a movie that was basically sold under the guise of it's about leftist liberal elites getting a dozen people that are called the deplorables in the script and or film, and then basically doing like a purge type hunt on them. Actually, it's a ripoff of about 7 other movies that have been made in the past where people were taken to the middle of the woods and then hunted by rich elite pricks. But this one specifically is aimed at, Trump supporters. And Tim points out the fact that, one, this is in incredibly poor taste. I don't believe in censorship. So if you're going to make the movie and put the movie out, put the movie out. But let's call a spade, and let's call this movie out for what it is, which is antagonizing and even a bad situation. Because America is fairly polarized right now. It's pretty polarized, probably more so than it's been in a long time. He makes the argument that you are fomenting hatred on both sides, right? Like, you're ramping up the leftist side of it by having this film that empowers violence, that dehumanizes the other side and empowers violence on people whom they don't even know, right? I don't believe in random violence. I believe in violence, but not random violence, okay? I don't believe on just doing evil on people that didn't earn it or didn't deserve it, right? Like, maybe it's just how I was brought up. Maybe y'all were brought up like that too. I don't know, man. But for me to mete out violence on somebody who truly earned it, who's an evil motherfucker that really deserves it, okay, I'm with you. I'll stand side by side with you for that, man. But to mete out violence on somebody who hasn't earned it, who's just an innocent person, what the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? I want to clarify why it upsets me, right? It's not because I'm soft. It's because it's an indicator of how far down the path we are going, right? It is demonstrative of where we are and where we're headed. And that's not good. So I'm going to include a link to the TimCast video. I think that it's totally worth watching. And I want to say this. It's like, we have to be very careful about the wholesale demonization of groups. Because groups are actually made up of individuals, right? And when you're talking about group activity, not every person in the group will have the same level of responsibility or the same level of commitment to that cause. And I suppose a good example of that is, it was only like 30% of Germany that was actually Nazi. But they ruled with such an iron fist that everybody else didn't have the option of speaking out against them. Otherwise, you would just go to the camp. Contrary to what people believe about the Nazis. The Nazis didn't discriminate so much, right? They took gays, they took Jews, they took anybody that wasn't down with the plan, anybody that was going to be vocal and outspoken and that wasn't down with the plan, they were going to make sure to get rid of those people, right? They were going to clean house, and they did. When Hitler took over, he cleaned house. He got rid of a lot of the brown shirts that helped him get to where he was because he knew that they were going to be a thorn in his side. People should remember that part. Like, all you loony leftists that want to help your leaders get into power, be careful, because after they get there, they clean you up. Typically in socialism, what happens is the dregs get cleaned up because they can't afford them. Socialist societies can't afford to have all kinds of people laying around not doing anything. So anybody who's got a predilection to not working, they usually go straight to a camp where they're worked to death, right? So yeah, you guys need to remember how socialism actually typically goes down. Do your homework on socialism. It's not cool. Part of the reason they're trying to call it democratic socialism is they're trying to distance themselves from socialism. But man, if you're going to try and hump the word socialism with the word democratic, man, it's not going to go well. It's going to play out just like every other socialist thing. But we, as Americans, as humans, we have to be very careful about the demonization of groups, right? I don't want to demonize the entire left. I think that there are lots of people that are just probably your average normal people. They're just trying to go to work. They're just trying to feed their kids. They're just trying to pay their bills. And they rely on the structures that we have in place to help them achieve those ends, right? And again, this goes back to, it's really tough when you have to choose between a shit popsicle and a turd sandwich, right? You only get two choices, Republican or Democrat, and both of those choices are pretty ineffectual and stalled out right now as far as the way they get things done, how much they get accomplished, all of these things. They're just not doing a great job for us, the American people. They're just not. That's why syphilis has a higher approval rating than Congress. People think more of syphilis than they think of Congress. So that should tell you something right there, right? But no, we need to be smart and recognize that don't demonize a group, right? You got bad actors in every group. You got bad people in every group. You got a lot of on the left, what you got is a lot of sheep. You got a lot of sheep that are just following people blindly in the hope that those people have a benevolent purpose and future for them, but they'd be mistaken. They'd be mistaken. It's never gone down like that yet. It's never happened like that yet. What's going to make this time different? That's the other thing that I need to know is, and I was thinking about this. If the Democrats could talk some sense with ideas that don't involve turning the United States into the Soviet Union to achieve those results, then they could be a lot further ahead. They could actually have a lot more ground than they have right now, because none of us wants to live in the Soviet Union. Plus, the Soviet Union collapsed, right? It didn't work. That's why it's Russia now. That's why it's Russia and a bunch of states surrounding it now, because the Soviet Union collapsed under its own weight. And part of the reason it caused its collapse is it was involved in wars in the Middle East for far too long that were far too expensive. Message. Right? So we need to be aware of all that, right? And my whole point is, don't demonize groups, right? You got bad people on the left, you got bad people on the right. But the good people need to stick together with the good people. All right? And we need to always remember that. America's like a loaf of bread, people. There's two scraggly ass ends on both ends, right? You got the extreme far left, you got the extreme far right. And those two scraggly ass ends look more like each other than the rest of the loaf of bread, dude. The rest of the loaf of bread look like sandwich slices. We all look like the bread, dude, because we're all Americans. But the people on the left and the right, they look a lot alike. They're both ugly and full of hate, and we don't need it. I really don't believe that the left or the right on the extreme far ends on either side holds very much ground, or has that many people, that many members ready to just go to war. It's, there are militias in America, but do you think that those guys are just going to go out and start a war? Probably not. You'd get chewed to bits, dude. Anybody in America that wants to do something dumb like that would have to know that you're going to get chewed to bits if you want to start some sort of civil violence like that. Like you would have to just be prepared to go full on and not make it out the other side of that, right? And I don't believe that there are huge groups of people that are ready to do that. I just don't. There's no evidence of it, right? Are there groups in America? Sure. But, I tend to believe most of those people are actually in a mostly defensive stance, right? They're just waiting for the shit to break down so that they can actually use all the plans and supplies and shit that they've stored off to the side so that they feel like they were smart to buy that shit. Relax, people. You were smart to buy that stuff. It's always smart to be prepared. Americans could use a little dose of being prepared. If you're not prepared, if you don't have any kind of supplies or food or anything, at least for 7 days, you should at least have enough something to hold you out for 7 days, right? It's not that hard to get a kit of dehydrated foods and some rice and some, things like that. It's easy, right? And you'll feel a lot better. Once you have that prepared for, you're going to feel a lot better. It's going to take some of the anxiety off of you, right? So last thing I want to talk about the last thing I want to talk about in this particular video is a theory that I have. I call this theory the theory of the boiling pot. The theory of the boiling pot. And that is that humanity, and specifically in this case, Americans are like the water in a pot, and that pot is on the stove. And the temperature is on underneath it, right? And the temperature is political heat, it is friction, it is anger, it is feeling unheard, right? All of those emotions are the heat energy that heats the water, right? As people feel unheard, as people feel hopeless, they heat up. The friction of feeling hopeless makes them heat up, right? And they rub against everybody else. And you got all this water in the pot. And then eventually what happens is you see a little bubble form on the bottom, right? Little bubble. And then there's this little phase where it's a bazillion little tiny bubbles. And then at some point, the water is warming up. The water is warming up. And then at some point, one of those bubbles pops off the bottom and it rises to the surface and it pops, right? And that represents somebody who flips out and goes and commits a violent act, right? The water's still warming. The water's getting warmer, right? Another one happens. Boop, comes up to the top and pops. We get another event, right? And then the water is still getting hotter because you got the mainstream media out there fanning the flames, fomenting anger in everybody. And so you got more and more bubbles popping to the surface. You got the garlic shooter out in the garlic festival in California, right? You got the guy that did the thing in Las Vegas, right? These are examples of bubbles coming up to the surface. As the water gets hotter, more and more bubbles pop to the surface. As the tension goes up, as the heat goes up, more and more bubbles come to the surface. But there's something going on in the water too. The water itself is beginning to accumulate more and more heat. And the bubbles become faster and faster and faster. And then at some point a transition happens and now you get a rolling boil. You get a rolling boil where all of a sudden it's just bubbles coming off the bottom all the time, right? Unless we change the path we are on, we are that pot of boiling water. Unless we stop, talk sense to each other, get back to having a discourse that's civilized, we are that pot of boiling water. And the bubbles coming to the top are the results of bad government, societal stress, people with hopelessness. That's the problem. That's the pot of boiling water in America, and it's only getting hotter, people. So don't expect for these things to slow down. Expect for it to speed up. As we move towards 2020, you've got more and more people that are unhinged on the left and the right. Part of the beauty of being in the center is I don't put all the weight of the world on fucking politics, dude. Washington is mostly an ineffectual, large corporation that's poorly run for the most part. And your day-to-day life, it's not like somebody from the government is sitting there over your shoulder watching what you do every fucking second except on the computer. But they're mostly an ineffective fucking corporation, right? So everybody out there that just puts so much weight on what the fucking government is doing, dude, get a life. Get out of the news cycle. Get off fucking Twitter. Get off CNN. Get off MSNBC. Get off these stations that are fucking fomenting your anger. You will feel better if you ditch that shit. One of the things that's been really great for me about doing this podcast is it has allowed me to not pay as much attention to the news. And I swear to God, people, it's making me a happier person. I just don't have the time for the fucking news bullshit anymore. And it has made me so much happier as a human being. So get some hobbies. Do something more meaningful. Do some crafts. do some painting, listen to Bob Ross, listen to Wayne Dyer, do something, right? Do something that isn't listening to fucking the mainstream media piss you the fuck off. Your life will be better for it, people. I promise. So I think that somehow I managed to do like an entire episode. That's kind of weird. I thought this was going to be 10 minutes worth of talking, but somehow this is going to actually be most of the better part of an entire episode. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for episode 21 of the Matt Mettler podcast. It's been a pleasure having you here. Please feel free to subscribe. You can click the notification bell to receive notifications. YouTube is suppressing me super hard. Apparently, they must not like the fact that I talk about the fact that they should be slammed with the fine hammer. maybe they're hard. Maybe they're shadow banning me extra hard. It's sort of funny because they don't claim to shadow ban, but they just patented shadow banning technology. So, do the math on that. So I've got 10 times as many views over on BitChute. For instance, I think one of my videos, the 5-minute can of tips has like 35 views over on BitChute. It has like 3 views on YouTube. But YouTube doesn't censor people. YouTube doesn't shadow ban people. Nah, they don't do that. Companies are the best people in the world. Companies never do anything wrong. So yeah, thanks YouTube. You guys, you'll get what you deserve at some point. That's all I can imagine, is that it has to, at some point it has to break, right? Because it can't continue on like this forever. That's for sure. So again, thank you for watching the Matt Mettler podcast. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. You can click the notification bell. And I really need your help, guys. I see you guys out there watching. I don't see you, but like I see the metrics, right? I see the analytics from you guys viewing it. I know that eyeballs watch this show. So the 6 degrees of separation really helps me. When you share the show with other people, when you talk about it, say, hey, there's this fucking guy. He says some crazy shit, but man, most of the stuff he says is kind of makes sense. Let people know. And that helps me out a lot, all right? So thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best watchers in the world. Listeners, viewers, you're the best. I super appreciate you, all right? Thanks for making the Matt Mettler podcast an amazing thing in the world. And I will see you on the next episode of the Matt Mettler podcast. The Matt Mettler podcast is a Matt Mettler production, copyright 2019.